Hey guys, Anthony here from MTG Alpha, and today we are going to be doing a deck tech episode on Oloro, Ageless, Ascetic. This is one of my favorite decks to play. This was one of the first decks I built in Commander, and I've been slowly tweaking it over the years. It didn't start off as Oloro as the Commander, but most of the cards in this deck have remained. It is a life gain deck. It is essentially, even though Oloro has blue in his commander identity, this is essentially an Orzhov life gain deck. Oloro is a 6 mana 4/5 that costs 3 white, blue, and black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 2 life. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, you draw a card and each opponent loses 1 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Oloro, Ageless, Ascetic is in the command zone, you gain 2 life. So whether Oloro is in the command zone or on the battlefield, you're going to gain 2 life. That's on your upkeep every turn. It's great. It is essentially like an Eminence ability, similar to Edgar Markov's Eminence ability or Rabo's Eminence ability. Those are Eminence abilities. They're abilities that occur whether your commander is in, or occurs while your commander is in the command zone. But yeah, this deck is unique that it is an Orzhov deck, and although I do have ways to produce blue to cast Oloro, I don't really have any blue cards in this deck. So we're going to start off with the ramp in this deck. We have Soul Ring, of course. All right, we have land tax. Land tax is great. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is great in that, we're filtering out the basics, and that just helps us draw into more gas later in the game. And obviously, we don't have to worry about missing our land drops. For 1 mana, land tax is one of my favorite cards in white. Pearl Medallion. A majority of the spells in this deck are white, I do believe. And yeah, so white spells cost 1 less to cast. So we're rocking Pearl Medallion in here. Jet Medallion is not in the deck. It is more expensive, and I think this deck just benefits more having white reduced in the mana cost. We do have Talisman of Hierarchy. 2 mana artifact that taps for colorless, and it also taps for white or black, and then it deals 1 damage to you if you tap it for white or black. So we're totally okay with taking damage in this deck. This deck does gain a lot of life. And yeah, so tapping that, not even losing any life with Oloro. Smothering Tithe. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If they don't, you create a colorless treasure token. Obviously a really good card. Any white deck can be running Smothering Tithe pretty much. And yeah, basically in a 4-person game, by the time it's your turn again, you already have 3 more treasure tokens. It's a lot of ramp. It's good advantage there. All right, and speaking of advantage, we have our card advantage. So Phyrexian Arena, 3 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. We're gaining 2 life every turn. So with Phyrexian Arena, we'll be gaining 1 life every turn. We're not even losing life, and we get to draw an additional card. Legion's Landing should have been mixed in with the... This is the... I don't know what you would call this. It's not really ramp, but, it is a 1 mana enchantment that flips. If you attack with 3 or more creatures, you can transform it. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 creature token with lifelink. And then it flips into a land that taps for 1 white mana. And you can pay 3 to create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. So you get the mana back pretty quickly. Like, you put 1 mana into this, and then it just ends up tapping for a land soon after you cast it. And it's pretty good, being able to produce tokens, especially tokens with lifelink. Yeah, it's great. Bolus of Citadel. So you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may pay life, or you may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, you pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than its mana cost. You can also tap it to sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, and each opponent loses 10 life. We're turning all of the life that we're gaining into mana, essentially. We can easily cast tons of cards off the top. This very well could be a game-winning card. And especially when you can tap it, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, each opponent loses 10 life. If we have a way to combo off, this could help set off that combo. Yeah, it could also contribute to a win. Dark Confidant. It's very similar. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Really great. We can pay the life for it. So not a bad card at all. There's a new card that came out. This would be a budget alternative. I forget what it's called again, but I forget what set it came out in. We got hit with so many sets recently, but there's a card that does the exact same thing as Dark Confidant, except it you and target opponent both benefit from the ability. So a little politicking, but hey, for if you're playing some more like budget decks, then it's very, very good, that alternative. Cosmos Elixir. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total, which it very well should be in this deck. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. Gaining life every turn is great. Drawing cards is even better, and it's a win-win in this deck. Ad Nauseam. Reveal the top card of your library. This is a 5-mana instant spell. Put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times. So much like Bolas' Citadel, we can just easily start casting cards off the top of our library. Greed. 4 mana. You can pay a black and 2 life to draw a card. Pretty good. Dawn of Hope. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. You can also pay 4 to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So, yeah, we have some of our tutors. Vampiric Tutor. Vampiric Tutor is a 1-mana instant. Search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that on top of it. You lose 2 life. With all of those ways that we're drawing cards, we can get that card same turn if we need. And yeah, 1-mana instant. We can do this on our opponent's end step. Losing 2 life means nothing in this deck. So Vampiric Tutor is very good. Profane Tutor. This could obviously be a Demonic Tutor, but I do like Profane Tutor. It's Demonic Tutor with Suspend 2. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So pretty cool. We have some removal in the deck. Toxic Deluge. Really good for removal in here. 3-mana sorcery, so it costs 1 than your typical board wipe. As an additional cost to cast, you pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. This is more effective than your typical board wipe. It costs less. The only downside is you have to pay life, but hey, in this deck, we can very easily pay 15 life and it wouldn't even affect us. We have Vindicate to destroy target permanent, any permanent, including lands, for 3 mana. And then we have Utter End, costs 1 more, but it is at instant speed and it exiles any non-land permanent. Path to Swords to Plowshares. Yeah, we exile target creature. They gain life equal to the creature's toughness. 1-mana instant. Pretty good. 3-mana instant. Anguished Unmaking. Exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. Solitude is essentially... it's equal to its power. Is essentially Swords to Plowshares. It's a 5-mana 3/2 with flash and lifelink. The lifelink benefits us because it's a life gain deck. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power. You can also pay its evoke cost by exiling a white card from your hand. This enters the battlefield. When it does, you sacrifice it. You're basically paying 0 for Swords to Plowshares, which is pretty good. And then Path to Exile. Same thing, exile a creature, and they get to put a basic land onto the battlefield tapped. So 1 mana instant speed. Damn. 2 mana sorcery. Costs 2 black. Destroy target creature. Can't be regenerated. And then you can pay its overload cost. Pay 2 and 2 white to destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. This is Wrath of God. So this is your typical removal, targeted removal. And then if need be, it is a very effective board wipe. Teferi's Protection. So 3 mana instant speed. All permanents you control phase out. And then, yeah, I mean, it's like, this is like the only like sort of protection spell in the deck. So if for whatever reason we're about to lose, or we want to protect our permanents from like a board wipe, or if you're about to be the one to initiate the board wipe and you have the extra mana, then you can phase out all your permanents, board wipe, they phase back in on your next turn, and then yeah, you can just go ahead and win the game right there without sacrificing any of your without sacrificing your board state. Aetherflux Reservoir. So this is definitely like a win con in the deck. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. So this is typically seen in like some Storm decks or Spellslinger decks. But the main thing here is that you can pay 50 life and deal 50 damage to target creature or player. Pretty good. Good way to knock out one of our opponents very easily. Even multiple opponents. Felidar Sovereign, 6 mana, 4/6. Vigilance, lifelink. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. So I usually don't like playing cards like this, but you know, sometimes if you have a game that just keeps on going, there's no win in sight, then it's good to just kind of get this out and let your opponents try to deal with it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. I mean, you're starting at 40. You're pretty much starting at 42 with Oloro, so it's very easy to get that out and then just win. Test of Endurance is very similar. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 50 or more life, you win the game for 4 mana. It is an enchantment, so it's a little harder to remove. This is more effective at just winning the game almost instantly. Exquisite Blood. This is part of a infinite combo. It's a 5 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. We have ways to combo it with Vizkopa Guildmage. 2 mana, 2/2 human wizard. You can pay 3 to give a creature lifelink until end of turn. But you can also pay 3 whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life. So if you can do something to kick off an opponent losing life or you gaining life, these two are going to combo infinitely. And it's each opponent, so this would take out all your opponents at the same time. Veto is essentially the same thing. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So this targets an opponent, and instead of each of your opponents, 5 mana, creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. Very similar to Vizkopa, but Sanguine Bond is the main combo piece that people use. It's the enchantment. It's the opposite of Exquisite Blood. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So pretty cool. Norn's Annex. This is a little bit more like flavor, I guess, in the game, or spice, or whatever you want to call it. It's a 5 mana artifact. It costs 3 and 2 Phyrexian. You can pay it with either white or pay 2 life. So we can get this out for 3 mana, pay 4 life. Doesn't affect us. Creatures can attack you or a planeswalker you control unless they pay 1 Phyrexian for each of those creatures. So it's a good way to get our opponents to just drain more of their life. It's a fun little card. It doesn't have like extreme synergy with the deck, but I like it, so it's in there. Another one would be Lyra Dawnbringer, 5 mana, 5/5, flying, first strike, lifelink. Other angels you control get +1/+1 and also have lifelink. This deck does produce lots of angels, so it's good to give them +1/+1 and lifelink. And it's just good to get Lyra Dawnbringer out there with flying, first strike, and lifelink. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Sarah Ascendant is a 1 mana, 1/1 with lifelink. As long as you have 30 or more life, Sarah Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. So We're starting at 40 life in Commander. So this is a 1 mana 6/6 with flying and lifelink. It's absolutely insane. This card is so good. Angel of Destiny, 5 mana 2/6, flying double strike. I'm still kind of like playtesting this in the deck, but whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. So it basically negates the damage that's dealt to them, because if they lose 10 and they're gaining 10, then just nothing happens. But we get to gain life. So all of our creatures have this sort of lifelink ability, but it's not lifelink. So it would occur in addition to any lifelink abilities. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. So this would just be a good way to get Angel of Destiny out, swing on an opponent. We most likely have 15 or more life, and then they just lose the game almost immediately. This should probably be up there with Felder Sovereign and stuff like that. Speaker of the Heavens, 1 mana 1/1 Vigilance and Lifelink. Tap it, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Activate this ability only if you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, and only anytime you can cast a sorcery. So this deck does produce angels. Here's another one, Angelic Accord. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained 4 or more life this turn, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So yeah, this triggers at least on our upkeep, pretty much. We're almost guaranteed to get a angel on our turn every turn, but it definitely does trigger on our opponent's turns as well, pretty often. All right, so very similar. We have the Book of Exalted Deeds, a 3 mana legendary artifact. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, create a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. Pretty similar. You get a 3/3 instead of a 4/4. But you can pay 3, tap it, exile it, put in a lightened counter on target angel. It gains you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Activate only as a sorcery. This turns any of your angels into a platinum angel. So that's fun. and it just produces more angels. I mean, gaining 3 life is very easy. Very easy to do. Divinity of Pride. This is a 5 mana 4/4 flying lifelink. It gets +4/+4 as long as you have 24 or 25 or more life. So this really is a 5 mana 8/8 with flying and lifelink. Such a fun card. Karlov of the Ghost Council. So these are all cards that just benefit having life or have abilities that trigger when you gain life. Whenever you gain life, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Karlov. You can pay 2, remove 6 +1/+1 counters to exile target creature. Really good. I just added this to the deck, so I haven't really got to play it too much, but this is a card that I've been wanting for a while. Heliod Sun Crowned. 3 mana 5/5 indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it isn't a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. Really good. Cards that are really good in this would be like Ajani's Pridemate and stuff like that. So Heliod is taking Ajani's ability and making that work with like any creature you control. You can also pay 2 to give a creature, another target creature, lifelink until end of turn. Whenever you gain life, pay 2. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature for each 1 life you gained. So we can pay 2 and put 10 counters on a creature, essentially. Authority of the Consuls. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, which is great. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. We really want... This deck is built around abilities that trigger from gaining life. So whenever... something occurs, like whenever something occurs, you gain 1 life. And then it's like, whenever you gain life, this occurs. So there's a lot of synergy with that. Like, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Bloodthirsty Aerialist. A lot of that. There's a lot of cards. Like, these are all cards that do that. So this is a big, this is half the deck right here. I mean, there are lands as well, but a majority of this, there's a lot of synergy in this deck. There's so much synergy in this deck. It's been tuned over the years. So It works really well. Soul Warden, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. And then here, you gain 1 life. If you have at least 10 or more life than your starting life total, transform it. So it's very easy. Tap it, gain a life, then we would have to transform it, and we most likely will. Target opponent loses 5 life. So we can just tap this, bam, target opponent loses 5 life. Really good card. Blood Artist, whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target opponent loses 1, you gain 1. A lot of things that happen whenever we're gaining life whenever an ability triggers, and then we're triggering abilities whenever it's great. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. And then whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. There's a lot of that. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain a life. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 5/5 horse. Other horses you control have indestructible. So it's just constantly, it's like every other card. It's like whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you gain a life. Whenever you gain life, create a 5/5 horse, or, you get it. Auriok Champion, 2 mana 1/1, protection from black and from red. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. Very similar to Soul's Attendant. It costs 1 more, and it's much more expensive just because it has protection from black and red. I mean, it's definitely relevant, but in Commander, Soul's Attendant would be a good alternative. Ajani's Pridemate. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Pridemate. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2, you gain 2. Okay. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. You can pay 6 until end of turn. Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. When that deals damage to anything, you'd get that 5, gain that 5 life, and then create your 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sunscorched Regent, and you gain a life. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1, you gain 1. This is really effective in decks that go wide. So if you have 10 creatures that are trying to attack you, you're going to gain 10 life and they're going to lose 10 life. Suture Priest, 2 mana 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. And then Rock's Faithmender, a 4 mana 1/5 with lifelink. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. This is doubling all of our life gain triggers. Same with Alhammerit's Archive, 5 mana artifact. If you gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. If you would draw a card, except for the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So we can draw cards with Oloro, and we can draw cards with other cards in this deck. So we're going to double up on our card draw. We could double up our life with Revival with Revenge from Revival Revenge. Double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life rounded up. This could very well knock out an opponent. And we can also have the option to pay 2 to return target creature card with CMC 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. You have Boon Reflection. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. And then we have our Planeswalkers here. So we have 3 different Planeswalkers. We have Sorin. As long as your turn creatures and planeswalkers you control have lifelink, we can take up Sorin to deal 1 damage to target creature, or deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. And we can -X return target creature with CMC X or less from the graveyard, or with CMC X, not X or less, from the graveyard to the battlefield. It's a vampire in addition to its other types. The other Sorin here, 6 mana. Reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to its converted mana cost, which is really fun because it's like you're getting the card advantage. They're the ones losing the life for it. You can -X to deal X damage to target creature or planeswalker, gain X life. And you can -9 to put a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens with lifelink onto the battlefield equal to the highest life total among all players. Very easily put, 50 1/1 vampire creature tokens with lifelink onto the battlefield under your control. Pretty good. Ajani Strength of the Pride. Gain life equal to the number of creatures you control, plus the number of planeswalkers you control. you can minus it to create a Johnny's Pride mate. And you can pay 0 if you have at least 15 or more life than your starting life total, exile it, and exile each artifact and creature your opponents controls. This is a one-sided board wipe. Extremely good in this deck. It costs 4 mana, so this is essentially board wipe costs. You can play it immediately, activate its 0 ability, one-sided board wipe, and it exiles the permanents. Very good. All right, now here we are with the lands. We have got some like nice little Orzhov basics in here. So we got the plains. All right. We have Azorius Island. This is the one basic island if needed. You can fetch that. Swamp. Got a few swamps. More white in this deck than black. We have our slow fetch, Floodplain. Just another way to possibly get some blue mana if we need to. It sacrifices, search your library for a plains or island. Then we have our actual fetches in here. Polluted Delta searches for an island or swamp. Flooded Strand searches for a plains or island. And then Marsh Flats searches for a plains or swamp. Flagstones of Trakir taps for white. When it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you can search your library for a plains, put it on the battlefield tapped. So good insurance there. Windbrisk Heights. It's a hideaway land, taps for white. When it enters the battlefield tap, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library. You can pay white to tap this and play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if you've attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn. Cabrera Crossroads comes in tapped, and we gain 2 life when it enters, so it's a good way to trigger some life gain abilities. Castle of Black Dwayne comes in tapped unless you control a swamp. Taps for black. You can pay 3, tap it, draw a card, and then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. We have no problem losing life in this deck. There's a lot of life to spend. We have Barrenmoor. It's a cycling land. Hollowed Fountain taps for white or blue. It's also fetchable because it's a plains and an island. Glacial Fortress. Hengate Pathway flips for, we could play it as white, or we can flip it to play it as like a blue producing card. Sea of Clouds. Enters battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more opponents, so enters the battlefield untapped in most games. Cave of Koilos taps for colorless, or we can deal 1 damage to us if we tap it for 1 or white or black. Scryland. Isolated Chapel. A Vault of Champions, same thing as Sea of Clouds, but with white and black. Scoured Barrens enters tapped, so we gain a life. Godless Shrine. Snowfield Sinkhole. It's a fetchable. It's a snowland, plain swamp. Bright Climb Pathway comes in as a producing white or black land. And this one's cool. Enters tapped. You can tap it for black. And you can also pay 3, tap it, sacrifice it, and a creature you control. Create a 4/4 Angel Warrior creature token with flying and lifelink. So, you know, just like a little why not sort of card in the deck. Vault of the Archangel. This one's really good. Taps for colorless, or you can pay 4, tap it, and creatures you control gain Death Touch and lifelink until end of turn, which is great. Mana Confluence, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And then finally, Command Tower, of course. I'm going to have a link in the description that will contain the deck list for this deck. I'll make sure that's updated. And yeah, that's Oloro Ageless Ascetic. This is one of my favorite decks to play, and so I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, make sure you're subscribed to catch future episodes just like this, and go ahead and check out some of the other videos we have on the channel. I do appreciate that. And yeah, until then, see you next time. Peace.